I grew up in a Christian home. Ever since I was a little kid, my parents did missionary work, and so I grew up around it my whole life. And my story kind of starts when I was about 17 years old. I was living in Romania, and I'd I'd go to church. My parents would want me to go to church, but I'd always hang out with the kids that are always, running around the block and smoking cigarettes and dating girls that weren't Christian. I wasn't really interested in really living it. I didn't really know God. I'd read my Bible occasionally, and didn't never put too much thought to it. Never really, really knew God. And when I was 17, my parents actually got a divorce, and I ended up being in Austin, Texas, kind of on my own. And I got in with a group of friends. There's like 4 or 5 of us friends, and we were just really close, really, really tight. And they were really into the whole drug thing. I just gave into that and started, smoking and doing drugs, and that's kind of our life. We just lived to do drugs, to party, and got into a lot of trouble with stuff like that, and just kind of got worse over the years. I stayed in Austin, Texas for like 3.5 years. By the end of my time there, I was a bartender and a bouncer in a really run-down nightclub in my side of town, and there's all kinds of just, drug dealers, heavy drugs, all kinds of stuff. I was drunk every single night towards the end of my time there, till I was just throwing up, and just my life was just being wasted. I was just killing myself slowly, basically. And my dad and my brother the whole time have been like, man, if you ever want to move up here, you can, and we'll pay for you to go to school. And I just moved. I left my apartment open, and I was like, you guys take whatever you want. I moved down here and moved in with like 4 other Christian guys, and I really gave them a lot of trouble at first. I was really mad at them. I was mad at God for a lot of things growing up, just unanswered prayers, and just had a lot of trouble growing up with stuff and people making fun of me and stuff. In the back of my mind, I really knew that God was real, and one night I was just, reading over some stuff that's talking about what Jesus did for me, and I learned that God loves me. He really did love me in spite of circumstances or how other people treated me, or how my cards were dealt. God loved me, and He had a plan for my life, and I knew that I was sinful, that I could never be perfect in God's sight, according to God's standard, and that Jesus gave His life on the cross, and He took all of my sins from my past, every sin I'm going to do in my future. He took them all upon Himself, and I could just receive His forgiveness and be forgiven of all my sins and have peace with God. I was like, Jesus, my heart's messed up. Please come in and help me. And since that day, He's been changing me. Like, it didn't happen overnight at first, but I started having different thoughts and thinking about things differently. I started to see God work, and beforehand it was like I had something was blinding me or covering my understanding. I just couldn't understand anything about God, but afterwards I started to understand things about God. It's like my inner eyes were open, and I could see who He really was, and what life was, spiritual life was all about. Just had a deep desire to just walk with God, to learn more about Him, and just to know Him more. And that's consumed pretty much my life as I know it for the last about 4 years now. He's really been working in my life and just set me free from a lot of that stuff. That's all I live for now, and so it's been a neat work that God's done in me, and been able to live with Him.